Hey guys, it's Felix, and in this video I am going to introduce to you guys just a really brief excerpt from a text from, I believe, the 8th or 7th century in early medieval England, and this text is the Liber Monstrorum, the Book of Monsters, and that's quite relevant. Now, I have included a manuscript and folio reference. This manuscript is digitized on the British Museum, so if you want to, you can go and look at this manuscript for yourself. And as the book title would imply, this is a book of monsters, and it shows how long monstrous queer coding has been part of Western culture, because we have a reference to essentially a habitual male transvestite here um, among the monsters, right? So we have, I don't know, unicorns and dragons and such like that, and we also have cross dressers. So very interesting that they're perceiving it that way. And I'm going to read it to you and translate it and just introduce you guys to this little bit of history. So, me enim quenda mominem in primordio operis utriusque sexus cognovisse testor, qui tunc ipsa facie plus et pectore virilis quam muliebris apparuit, et vir a nescientibus putabatur, sed muliebria dilexit opera, et ignardos viros more meretrices decipiebat, sed hoc frequenter apud humanum genus contigisse fertur. So, what does this mean? It means the syntax here is actually quite complicated, but testor, I testify, me cognovisse, that I knew, that I was familiar with, quenda mominem, a certain, now homo in medieval Latin is more gender neutral. Hildegard von Bingen, for instance, describes herself as homo rather than as a mulier or a vir, although I think she describes herself as a mulier elsewhere. So homo is more gender neutral than vir or mulier in Latin. In primordio operis utriusque sexus, in the beginning of the labor of each sex. So it's almost dipping his toes in either sex's roles. It's interesting that almost like that they refer to the role as opera or opus. So, qui tunc ipsa facie plus et pectore virilis quam muliebris apparuit, who then appeared in his face, facie plus et pectore, and in his chest, plus virilis, more virile, more manly, quam muliebris, than womanly. And it's rather interesting that this person who's writing this anonymous book of monsters locates his the clocking that reveals this person to be a man is in his face. Very similar to the Roman poet Magnus Felix Honorius writing a poem on Uxorcula, who might have been. There are some clues in the poem that the person he was referring to, mockingly as Uxorcula, might have been a natal male who regularly cross-dressed and regularly engaged in homosexual sex with other men. And Enodius also says that vir face is how he describes Uxorcula, a man in face. So it's very interesting that they describe it that way. In the Indicia Monasterialia, which is a list of Anglo-Saxon sign language signs that they would use in a monastery when they had to be silent, the signs for men and women both involve the face. For women, it's this. So you go from brow to brow. Sorry for the bumping. Go from brow to brow, you wipe like that. And for man, you stroke the beard. So yeah, maybe for medieval people, sex, one of the more visible signs of sex was in your face. Although we know from the legend of Saint Eugenia that sort of baring one's breasts was also a sign of womanhood, although, or a symbol of womanhood, although, gynecomastia is not massively uncommon, so males could also have done this. So, but medieval people, I suppose, didn't have as good a grasp of biological sciences as we do today. But anyway, that's a whole side topic. So this person appears like a man, more like a man than a woman in face. Et vir a nescientibus putabatur, and he was deemed to be a man by the nescientibus, so by those who were not knowing, which I find really interesting. It's almost like, which implies to me that people who he introduced himself to, or who this person introduced themselves to, knew this person to be perhaps a woman, but people who didn't know, just going by on the street, might see them and see a man, which is really, really interesting that almost this person is respecting their social identity. It's so interesting. And this person seems to be adopting a more of a feminine social role. Sed muliebre dilexit opera, but he loved the opera muliebria, womanly tasks. Now, this probably refers to sexual, if we're being honest, but it might also be dress and body language, etc. Really, really fascinating. Et ignardos viros more meretrices decipiebat. So he was deceiving unknowing men. So we literally have the trap meme from early medieval England. It's amazing. More meretrices, in the manner of a prostitute, of a whore. So he was so people who didn't know him thought he was a man, he loved womanly things, and he was tricking unknowing men in the manner of a whore. Said hoc frequenter apud humanum genus contigisse fertur. But it is reported, fertur, hoc contigisse, that this has happened frequenter, often, apud humanum genus, among the human race. So, I mean, really interesting that in early medieval England we have somebody acknowledging that cross-dressing males happen quite regularly among the human race. So I find that really cool and very interesting. It gives us a view into how early medieval English people, when confronted with essentially transvestitism, how they responded to it, how they thought about it, how they dealt with it. And you know, this little passage doesn't give us enough necessarily to know how this person lived socially, were they called a woman, were they called a man, etc. I think the text here is acknowledging that there's some ambiguity and some confusion going on, to perhaps with the person themselves and perhaps in those around them who perceive them. So nonetheless, it's extremely interesting and a nice fun little bit of queer history. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Latin tidbit. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of these. I'm hoping to get up to 1,000 subscribers, and then I can do videos live streaming from museums and such like this. And thank you so much. If you want me to teach you Latin so that you can learn to read stuff like this for yourself, and then you can call me out on my bullshit, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which is going to be linked in the description below. Do not do so if you don't have the financial means. Please do not do so if you don't have the financial means. I am completely fine. This is like an extra thing. And that is basically a way for you to get tuition from me at lower than market rates. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye, everyone.